Throughout the years, I paid close attention to what women have asked about. And I provided a very safe environment for women to learn more about their bodies, about themselves, and to be able to make decisions for what happens to them in the bedroom.
It's about empowerment. It's about positive expression of sexuality with respect, enhancing relationships, and other things that are really important to remember about sexual health is that it should be free of coercion, it should be free of violence, and free of discrimination as well.
Whatever feels good, it's right, it's done with no judgment, mutual respect, and consent. I think we need a lot more sex right now in our country, honestly.
And just as though I would prescribe hand weights or an exercise band to improve your tennis game, I prescribe sex toys to improve your sex game.
This blows most people's minds. And we as a society are pretty poor at discussing and exploring female sexual anatomy. This information is still not common knowledge. So hopefully through this podcast, it'll have more of an impact.
Remember, sex care is self-care, and sexual health matters.
Please welcome to the stage Pure Romance founder and chairwoman Patty Brisbane. And welcome the medical advisory board members of the Patty Brisbane Foundation, Dr. Michael Crickman, Kathleen Novicki, Dr. Christine Vaquero, and Dr. Cheryl Iglesias.
Oh my goodness, we get to do this live, you guys, and together. This is exciting. And thank you, girls, for getting up bright and early. I know you partied like rock stars last night. But I also know one thing about each and every one of you, that your business matters. Your clients matter. And you want to be there to support them and help them through whatever it is that they're going through. And so what better way to spend our morning than with this wonderful, esteemed, wonderful, wonderful doctors. So we're going to start with Dr. Crickman. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us what you do on a daily basis.
So I'm Dr. Michael Crickman. I am a sexual medicine gynecologist. So I'm lucky because I get to talk about sex all day, every day. And just like that's going to become part of what you do, I think it's really important to recognize that there's a lot of people suffering in silence. So I have 4 clinical offices. I see women with insurance, no insurance, all backgrounds, all ethnic diversities, with illness, with chronic conditions, as we'll talk about later. And I'm also a sex therapist, so I really recognize that the mind-body connection is super important. And what I do day to day, I'm seeing patients, I am working on research, and that's why the PBF is so wonderful that we get to do a lot of things to change women's lives on a daily basis. I'm also the father of twins, and we'll talk about that when we talk about libido. And what are the big buzzkills for libido?
There we go. Stay tuned, everybody.
Good morning, ladies. My name is Dr. Christine Vaquero, and it's such a pleasure to be here. I love the energy in the room and the music this morning, and it's so fun, and I'm just really honored to be here. I'm a double board certified obstetrician gynecologist and female pelvic medicine reconstructive surgeon. That's also called urogynecology for short. And I'm a fellowship director and associate professor in Bethesda, Maryland. And I'm going to keep it short because so we can get to the questions. So nice to be here.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm glad everybody's here. I'm so excited. Can you tell? I'm excited.
Well, I'm a pure romance virgin. This is my first time. And it's so great to be here with a lot of other new.
There's a lot of new partners setting out here
So
today.
I'm new like you. So my name is Sherelle Iglesia. I am Filipino American. I'm a female surgeon who practices in Washington, D.C., and I operate on women, and I talk to a lot of women, and I just want to be here to answer your questions and to impart some knowledge so that we can spread the word about sex positivity. So
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Well, I'm Kathleen Nowicki. I had the pleasure of being here at the last national training, and I came out of there and I was so excited. You guys have amazing energy. And so when I was invited back to do this again, I was elated. I'm a doctor of physical therapy and board certified in pelvic health rehabilitation. I've been at this about 30 years. And every day, still, I have women that have no idea what pelvic health physical therapy is. So I joined the Patty Brisbane Foundation with the hope that I can educate as many women as possible of the value of pelvic health physical therapy and a multidisciplinary support for women with sexual health. Thanks for being here.
Oh, come on, girls, you could do better. That's exactly how I'm feeling about every single one of these doctors sitting on this stage. I am so honored that they're here to help us help others. But we're going to start right now with Dr. Critchman. Here's the first question going out. I want to start talking today about the mind and body connection. What are the psychological issues that influence libido?
Well, Patty, I think it's a great start to talk about libido because, I always say, look to your right, look to your left. One of you has low libido. And remember, somebody is looking at you. So it is probably the most common issue that you will see when you start having parties, talking to other women as well. And that's really the ideal when it comes to this mind-body connection. So let's talk about the biology. There's a lot of variables. It's like kind of putting gas in the tank. You need hormones, you need anatomy, you need a variety of different things in order to function. And, we now know a lot of really important stuff about hormones and testosterone and estrogen as well. And I was super excited when I was here yesterday walking around and I saw this testosterone boost. And this is gonna be probably your #1 seller. Testosterone known to influence and impact desire and your underlying issues in terms of want, need, interest, fantasies, and what have you. So you gotta put gas in the tank. But you also have to have some motivation to pick up those keys and go for a drive, right? And what about those psychological issues, right? We know stress, fatigue, COVID, isolation, pandemic, that really is impactful. Too much of a good thing is not a good thing. And I say, no matter how wonderful your house is, 4 walls can be really confining when you're there day in and day out. Let's not forget about kids, right? And the responsibilities that they need. And I always say, did I say kids? I usually say that twice because I have twins, right? And that's a buzzkill in and of itself. So I think it's really important to recognize that. And what about self-care? And how does that influence libido? Well, I think it's really important because women deprioritize their own sexuality, their own sexual health. Very often they're influenced by their partners and they are kind of vilified and saying like, you should have what I want, you should have the same libido. So it's important to recognize that libido waxes, it wanes, it's better at sometimes, it gets worse. But when is it time to see a clinician or when is it time to get some help? And I get asked that question all the time, and I think it's a matter of the amount of distress that you're getting. So how troubled are you? And really you. So very often I have women that come in and, Patty, they say to me, my partner sent me here because I have low libido. And my first question is, well, how do you feel? And she's like, I feel great. I'm doing wonderfully. And I said, well, I don't think you have a libido problem. Maybe we need to address the relationship mismatch. So it's very important to understand your own needs, your own wants, your own desires by yourself. And then if a partner is there, great. If not, it's also great as well. So, libido is going to be one of the things that you're going to talk about, and you have a lot of tools in your war chest to really help women, help themselves, help their relationships as well. So don't forget testosterone. It's super important, just like biology. So everybody needs a little bit of a tune-up and needs to see a clinician, but we also have to work on our brain, decrease our stress, stay focused, and really understand ourselves in order to have a great libido and move forward.
That's a great answer. And when you go in to speak with your doctor, if he's ignoring and not asking the right questions, I think all of you would agree it's time to find somebody else.
Divorce him
Absolutely.
or her.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And you can divorce your doctor.
You can divorce your
Absolutely.
your doctor. Yeah.
I've done that too. Anyway,
A couple of men, a couple of doctors.
couple men, couple doctors, move on, make yourself happy, right? All right, Dr. Vaccaro, can you help us understand the biology of sexual arousal and the response?
I love this question, and to play off of Dr. Critchman, you see 3 sexual response models here. I'm going to get into that in just a bit, but first, I think it's nice to define the mind-body connection a little bit more. So obviously the mind is the brain, right? Some people say that's the actual ultimate sex organ because it controls everything else. And then obviously the body, right? Our genital structures that the brain has to signal, hey, this is good stuff going on here. And then the connection, which is the nerves and the messengers, like testosterone is a messenger, and other neurotransmitters are messengers that the brain sends to signal. So that's kind of the mind-body connection, and all of those things have to be working correctly for arousal to kick in. And again, Dr. Critchman gave a great explanation of libido. And then I just want to mention the idea of context. So you can have all those things working, and things still aren't working well because of context. So you picture yourself on vacation with your partner, no kids, things are great, right? No worries. And then picture 12 weeks after giving birth, a little flabby, not sleeping. Okay, your partner comes to you and you're just like, no, thank you very much. There's things that are working, but sometimes context also needs to be something to consider. And then I just want to also mention the idea of turning off your frontal lobe, which is your thinking part of your brain. And a lot of times women during a sexual encounter are thinking about so many different things. I gotta make lunch for my kid, I gotta finish the laundry, I gotta send this email. And it's hard sometimes to turn off that thinking brain and turn on the instinctual, animalistic, I'm getting a reward part of your brain, which is the midbrain. So that's also something that we'll talk about later as far as mindfulness, and I have a little exercise that we'll do for that. And then I do want to describe just a little bit my favorite organ, the clitoris. Okay, this little, very intricate and very compact organ has so many cool facts, okay? I like to think about it like a smaller version of the penis, just a little bit more hidden, okay? A little bit more intricate. And it's actually about 9 centimeters from glans all the way to the tip of the crura, which are the legs. And it can swell up to 300% during arousal, which is really cool. So it's quite a fascinating organ, and medical professionals don't actually know a lot about it. So you probably now know more than most medical professionals when asked. So yay for you. And then my other fun fact about the clitoris is the only purpose of the clitoris is sexual pleasure, right? So, a male penis, it's used for urination and, for intercourse as far as fertilization, but the clitoris, literally only one purpose, pleasure. So just remember that when you're talking to all the ladies at your parties. And I do want to just put a plug in for the Sexual Anatomy 101 resources that are on the PBF site that have more detailed information about the clitoris. Okay, so now that we know all the ingredients, let me get to these sexual response cycles. So I think some people are familiar with the Masters and Johnson model, which is kind of the old school 1950s model, and that's the first one on the left. And you can see on the top the male sexual response, which typically, excitement, plateau, orgasm, and then they have to have a refractory period before they can try to orgasm again. On the lower section there, the Masters and Johnson, are 3 different scenarios for women. And I don't know how well you can see A, but A is a multi-orgasmic woman. Okay, they don't need a refractory period. B is a woman that has some excitement but plateaus without reaching orgasm, which, another fact, 11% of women have lifetime anorgasmia, so never, ever figure out how to orgasm, which again, if it was a male problem, would be really big news. And then C is a woman that has a really quick excitatory phase and climaxes very rapidly. So this model, though, doesn't explain all things. So another doctor, Dr. Kaplan, modified the model. So that's the middle model. And she thought it was important to start with desire first, whereas the Masters and Johnson did not start with desire. And then lead to excitement, which is arousal, and then orgasm. And you'll see that the resolution phase she thought was not important and not listed. But still, that didn't quite describe it all. So another doctor, Dr. Rosemary Basson, decided that we needed a more circular model. Because as you probably know, a lot of women are motivated by sex through lots of different things. Connectivity, pleasing their partner. Sometimes it starts with desire, but sometimes, and Dr. Critchman loves to talk about this, is reactive desire, where your partner advances, things start to feel good, and then you actually want to have sex, versus the drive for sex starts and then you engage your partner. So a lot of times desire can happen first, or arousal and then desire. So this idea of a circular model is really important. And then a really cool research article in the Journal of Sexual Medicine showed, looking at over 100 nurses, which model they felt best fit them. And a third picked each one of these. So what it just says is every woman's different. It's a very personal response, the arousal response, and that's okay. You just have to find out what works for each woman. So that's the sexual response. Hopefully that wasn't too much information, but just know it's individual, it's personal, and every woman has to figure out what works for them. Okay.
I think that's wonderful, but girls, be on the lookout for the woman who never experienced an orgasm and make sure she gets a clitoral stimulator.
But that's, I agree, Patty, because, as you get older, and I can say this because I'm middle-aged and in menopause, don't be embarrassed if it's going to take some extra imagination and some devices, because I want to be the woman with the double orgasm, why wouldn't you? Life short. So, and you might need some more things to enhance the blood flow, and if your partner's not so good with foreplay, there are things that you can do. FYI.
You hear that? Yeah. It's okay, right?
You have to give them permission.
We give permission
to explore.
Yeah. So remember, that's what you're doing every single day out there, is you're giving permission. So continue to do just that.
That was great.
So, Dr. Iglesia, many different urological conditions can impact desire, arousal, and orgasm.
Yeah.
We often hear that women with incontinence shy away from sex. Okay, but first of all, remember, we got a lot of new partners out here.
Right.
So what is incontinence first?
Okay. Ladies and the few gents out there, the kind of incontinence leading to accidental bladder leakage is not the golden shower that you want in the bathroom. There may be a different type of golden shower, but honestly, urinary incontinence and what Christine and I do for pelvic organ prolapse is very common. By the time a woman is 80 years old, 50% of women will have some type of pelvic floor disorder, whether it be their bladder dropping or there's leakage, accidental leakage of urine or accidental leakage of bowel. So it's very common, and it's a reason why people shy away. It's a reason why people don't even engage in other social activities. And I think when you're going out and speaking to a lot of women, because we're looking at 50% of the population and 11% are getting surgery from people like, it's important to understand that that may be in the back of their mind. They're worried about the odor. They're having to wear pads. They all wear black now because you don't want to wear white. They're going to the bathroom. Hold that thought. Let me just empty my bladder before you go down there. And I think it's important for people to understand that this is not a normal part of aging. And for women, and the biggest culprit for this is childbirth, and that's a separate question I guess we can talk about later. This is treatable. In fact, it's reversible in 85% of conditions. So you need to go to the right specialist to get the right diagnosis. And let's talk urinary incontinence. You can have different types. One is the gotta go, can't make it to the bathroom on time. The other is leakage with laugh, cough, and sneeze. That's called stress incontinence. But most people have a mixture of both. So what can we do for this? I mean, you know, here we are, COVID and the COVID-19. Honestly, weight loss is something. We know that if you drop like 10% of your body mass index, you can decrease leakage by 50%. So obviously we talk about some of the behavioral things that we can do, managing fluids, like not too much alcohol and not too much caffeine, which cause a lot of urgency. But then we go into different medications, devices. We've got support devices. We've got fillers, injections, and Botox for the bladder. And then we have surgery. And many of you may have people who've had surgery and they had a great response to surgery, and others may have had a complication. And for sure, when you have a complication after surgery, you should see a specialist. But mesh has gotten a lot of bad rap, and I honestly feel that maybe there were too many people doing it and not the right patients, maybe not the right training. But if you are going to think about surgery, I truly believe you should see a specialist. And it's just with any type of surgery, whether you get a hysterectomy or whatever, go to somebody who does a lot, because we know that volume matters and you want to go to high volume places and get the right kind of evaluations. But it really shouldn't be holding you back in the bedroom. And I want you to talk to women about that, because so many, I mean, by the time you're 40, it's 25% of American women. You know, obviously, you know, there's a lot of things that we can do, and I want people to feel confident. So I like you, Patty. The secret is you. I love this book, and I love how you're helping a lot of women, but you're doing it, you know, not to sell a product, but you're doing it for the right reason. For you guys to educate all the women who are embarrassed by these kinds of things. To me, I mean, Dr. Ruth was one thing, and Dr. Ruth did a lot of talking about sex. You're actually walking the walk, and I really appreciate that.
But what I love is this army of women who are doing the same thing. They're out there, they just don't want to go out and sell a product. They want to make sure that they're holding women and lifting them up and empowering them to find the right doctors and the right cures. And I appreciate every single one of you that go out there every day and you share the message. So that means a lot.
And if your sixth sense is telling you it's not right, then get a second opinion, you know, or contact the, you know, the resources that they have here with the Patty Brisbane Foundation.
You know, finding the right doctor is really, really important, because if you look, sometimes people want to, you know, not spend the money, you know, and you don't want to end up blotched. So make sure that you encourage, if you're helping that woman, that you're encouraging her to find that doctor that does a large amount of those surgeries, and not somebody that says, oh, I'm new, I'm going to do it today.
And I see stuff all the time, and I feel like people are being duped, like laser vaginal rejuvenation. I had a woman whose literally bladder was like halfway down her legs. And she paid like $2,000 for a urology practice in Northern Virginia to do this, which was never going to help, and in my humble opinion, rather unethical. But you know, the bottom line is you guys are educating and you're talking, and women talk, sister to sister.
They do.
Mother, sister, daughter, friend. It's an opportunity for us to share and be legitimate.
That's important. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Dr. Nowicki, can you explain the mind-body connection in terms of the pelvic floor?
Yes. Well, when we think of the pelvic floor, we're thinking more of the physical. The muscles, the ligaments, the nerves, but the mind drives the physical drives the mind. I think we might all have a better understanding of the mind-body connection with physical performance with what happened with Simone Biles at the Olympics. You know, that mind-body connection became altered. And because of her complexity of her gymnastic moves, it was essentially dangerous for her to continue to do what she was trying to do.
Twisties.
In the same sort of mind-body connection we want from sexual health. We want it to be a smooth connection, an automatic connection, something that doesn't interfere with the arousal and the physical activity of sexual health. When it's associated with something negative, incontinence or pain, that mind-body connection can be disrupted. So when you see a pelvic health physical therapist, we'll take a look at the physical aspect and have you try to get control over that part and then combine with the sexual therapist or your medical provider, reconnect that mind-body. The one thing about the pelvic floor that's a little bit more unusual than other parts of our body is that you can't see it. You know, if I told you I want you to contract your biceps, and I said, and you do that by bending your arm, well, you can see that you just did it. Well, if I tell you to contract your pelvic floor right now, you may think you're doing it, but how do you know? Even if you put a mirror there, you may not be able to see anything happen. So as one of the things that we do is we utilize different techniques to improve that ability to find that pelvic floor so that it does what you want it to do. One of the things that we utilize is biofeedback. And essentially that is just using your own body senses to become aware of what your body is doing. It can be as elaborate as a unit that has sensors that we can place externally on the pelvic floor, or you can have an intravaginal or an intraanal sensor, but it's hooked up to a computer or even a smartphone these days. And it shows you a picture of what your pelvic floor is doing. It could be as simple as a bar graph or a line, or as elaborate as a flower blossoming. But by seeing that picture, you actually get the idea of, oh, when I do this, my pelvic floor contracts. When I do this, it relaxes. But we can use other things too. I had a patient that came to me and she said, well, I have these exerciser balls, Pure Romance exercise balls. Yeah. And she goes, you know, can I use these? And she was having a really hard time understanding how to let go of her pelvic floor muscles. And I said, well, bring them in. And so all we had to do is place it just on the outside of the vagina, but it gave her enough sensory awareness that when I said, okay, I want you to just imagine that your pelvic floor, or that area that you feel down there, is melting over that ball. And she was able to do it. And the whole idea with that is that we start out where you're actually have a plan, to, like, I am doing this, almost like a drill, but then eventually you're doing it and you're not even thinking about it anymore. No different than the athlete that has to do the drills in order to be able to rehabilitate after a knee injury. But eventually they're in the game and they're not thinking about their knee anymore. It's the exact same thing with the pelvic floor. So you know, the whole idea with the mind-body connection with the pelvic floor is being able to have the response that you would like to have. We utilize techniques that give you the control or the power to be able to control that muscle to eventually have it become automatic.
Thank you.
The knack.
Yes.
It's okay. You like it, you clap. One of the things that I think we need to discuss more is the relationship between sexual health problems, mental health, and well-being. The mind and the body are not separate. Thoughts, emotions, hormones, and sexual anatomy all interact. For example, cancer treatment has a profound lasting effect on a person's body, mind, and spirit, leading many survivors to struggle with the aftermath of the treatment. Dr. Critchman, you often talk about sexual self-esteem as a cancer survivor. Can you explain the sexual self-esteem, what it is, and how we can improve on it?
Yeah, Patty, you know, I want to kind of back up a little bit and kind of give a little bit of a background about cancer and how it's so impactful on so many levels. You know, really we divide it up into several phases. One is like the echo, when you're sitting across from this clinician and you're told that you have cancer, and then this whole treatment paradigm is outlined. And then you kind of go into a task phase where you have lots of clinicians who take over control, lots of papers to sign still, even with electronic medical records. You're going through chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, medication, and it's a complete loss of control. You are turning yourself over to experts to really treat your condition. And then remember, it wasn't too long ago that, you know, in the chemo unit, when you were done, they used to throw you a party and say you're a survivor, but nobody gave you that plan of what it is to be a cancer survivor. And for those of you that may know or not know, I spent, you know, a decade of my life at Sloan Kettering where I was running this survivorship center, which was really avant-garde before it became something of importance, is really living with cancer. So what is survivorship? It's really about prevention and about wellness. And that includes the mind-body experience. So, you know, with chemotherapy, you have major changes. You're actually putting in really strong, powerful drugs into your body. They are killing the cancer cells, but they also kill regular cells as well. Hair loss, menopause. I know Christine's going to talk a lot about hot flashes. You know, vaginal dryness. All these new changes that are happening to your body, your hormones, your mood, your relationship. You have radiation, and you have radiation changes. Imagine if you can't even put your arm around somebody because your arm is so tight with, you know, scar tissue or what have you. And surgery, of course, changes the way you have your genitals. They may be removed. You may have a breast removed. Or even if you have a different type of cancer, having a scar will influence how you feel about yourself. So sexual self-esteem really is about how you view yourself as a sexual person. And I think the most important thing to remember is I'm going to give everybody in the room a little job to do when they get home, either tonight at the hotel room or tomorrow when you get back. Stand in front of the mirror, completely naked, and it's not after a shower, it's not after or before getting dressed, and just really look at yourself. And remember that things change, irrespective of illness, irrespective, you know, age, we all get different in terms of our anatomy and what have you. And really look at yourself and really embrace who you are when you are experiencing that. And that is really everybody's expression of sexuality, and sexual self-esteem is really the same and very different at different times of your life. So it's okay to sometimes want to do some self-improvement. It's okay to embrace who you are as a sexual being. I want to ask everybody, how many of you through COVID have had this renovation bug and they've done renovations? So I want to tell you a little bit of story of what happened with me when I did a renovation. So we were just going to renovate the kitchen and just change the appliances, right? So we just changed the appliances, and then kind of the countertops didn't look great, so we just had to do that. And then the sink didn't fit, so it was okay. And then, and then there was just a window, and how about we just make the window into a door, but it was leading nowhere. So we had to just build a patio. And, cancer is the Justa syndrome. That's what I'm trying to get to you, the Justa syndrome. Clinicians say, well, we'll just take off your breast, and we'll just take off the other breast, and let's just remove the ovaries, and let's just keep you on medicine that's going to make your vagina super dry and make your bones brittle, not just for 5 years, but for 10. So remember that there are a lot of options. There's a lot of new avant-garde therapies. There's also this concept about surveillance and watching. So as we've said here, I know the PBF, you all should have that pamphlet about how to find a clinician and build a healthcare team. I always say sometimes in sexual medicine, there's two things that may be the best treatment. One is a partnerectomy, right? So one is, it's a situation and be empowered to change that. And one is also a doctorectomy. And, if your needs are not being met, or you're not being heard, or you're not being validated, or you're not having time to ask questions, it's time to start looking for new healthcare providers and build a team of people who will listen. Because as you can see here, we're from across the country. There are dedicated clinicians like ourselves who are there committed to sexual health and wellness for women at different stages of their life. So it's really important. And the last thing to remember is cancer used to be the C word that was whispered in the back hallway, and it was an embarrassment. And remember that, cancer now should be looked upon as a chronic medical condition. It's something you're gonna live with for a very long time. And we kind of move away from the term of survivorship and call it, you're a thriver, because quality of life is super important. And when you speak to cancer patients, sexual health is the #1 issue of maintaining that humanness and connectivity to patients. So, many of your clients will have cancer. There's a lot of things in our war chest that we can help them, but again, be empowering to women to get help and not suffer in silence.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Well said.
All right, we're going to talk about a subject that every single woman in this room cannot run away from. And so we're going to talk a little bit about menopause and how it affects our mental health and what options are out there to help us through this life-changing, forever-changing things that happen to our body that we just hate. Dr. Vaccaro, we're going to start with you.
I think Patty's facial expression summed it up. It's basically how I felt in medical school when I learned about menopause.
Yes.
It was utter dread. It was like, oh, I don't ever want that to happen. But hopefully through this, I can give you some tips for a smooth transition and or other ways to manage symptoms and talk to your clients about how to manage their symptoms. There's lots of behavior things that we can do. There's lots of hormonal and non-hormonal medication. But just quickly, the definition for natural menopause, and that's what I'm just going to talk about today, just natural menopause, which is the most common. It's a slow decline in estrogen, and it's 12 months without a period. So usually the average age is around 50 to 51. Some women have it a little bit younger, some a little bit older, but that's the average. And then the symptoms, hot flashes, night sweats, brain fog, irritability, just a sense of not being well. That actually can start 7 years before menopause. So you can start, which is actually where I am, you could actually start getting those symptoms at that point. So it can be a long transition through menopause and then linger as well. Let me also tell you about the importance of estrogen. So estrogen protects our blood vessels. It helps them dilate and it helps them stay really pliable, meaning stretchy. And that's important for our genital organs too, and our brain. So estrogen is a really important hormone that when our ovaries that make the estrogen start making less and less and less, we have not as much in the body, and that's when we start getting all these really annoying symptoms. So I'm going to go through just, all the things that we can do to help with all these, what is called vasomotor symptoms. That's a really kind of fancy word to mean vaso for vessels, your blood vessels, and then how your body reacts to the changes in the blood vessels. And by the way, the hot flashes, why that happens is this change in the brain's regulation of your temperature. So you feel sometimes like really, really hot, and then sometimes really, really cold, and you can't quite get the right layering or the right temperature in your house or in your car or whatever, and it's really extremely frustrating. Some women break out completely in sweats and have to change their clothing, and that would be on the more severe spectrum. There are some women that have very mild symptoms, and I hope that's some of you, but that kind of go through it and like, oh, that was no big deal. Good for you, that's not the majority, but hopefully that is some of you in the crowd. But other things that can happen are diminished sleep quality. So if you're up all night tossing the covers on, off, and you're sweating and you're changing your clothes, it really influences sleep, which is our biggest health benefit, which I'll talk about a little bit later, how important sleep is. But that throwing off your sleep really is going to disrupt your entire well-being. All right, so into what we can do. So behavioral changes, these are just simple things that you can even talk to your clients about. And again, this is different layers of clothing so they can quickly take off and add on. Having fans, making the house cool, making the bedroom really cold, like 60 degrees. So you can always put on more, but you can always take off covers if needed. Exercise is really important. Okay, again, that helps the blood vessels maintain that stretchability. It's also good for your mental well-being to get out and exercise. And then, things that are very difficult, I feel like these days, maintaining a normal weight and being careful what you eat and drink. So alcohol makes you more apt to have hot flashes. Spicy foods, caffeine, things that we really like, unfortunately make hot flashes much worse. So just sometimes knowing what the trigger is for you is really important. When you always, drink the Starbucks latte that we all like and then all of a sudden have a huge hot flash, then you have to just weigh the risks and benefits of those decisions. And then not smoking, which also has a myriad of health benefits. So don't start smoking when you're trying to get through the stress of menopause. And then talking to each other, having a support group. When you're having your parties, talking about symptoms that other women are having, normalizing the issue because it is normal and everyone goes through it. And you should talk about it because it's helpful to get other tips from other women and normalize the condition and share what's working for you. Other things that have been looked at, acupuncture, meditation, there's some evidence that those also help, as well as engaging of course, your medical team. And that doesn't just include a physician, but also behavioral health specialists that can help you get through the frustration of all the symptoms and how they're influencing not just your overall well-being, but also your sexual well-being. Because sexual health, as far as like vaginal dryness, is a real common symptom of menopause as well. So I'm a pretty simple person. I like to just think things simply. So this whole idea of keep it simple, stupid. So if I had a car and my tire pressure was low, I would want to put more air in my tire to make my car run. And I think of that as far as menopause and estrogen. So when estrogen levels drop really low, we know from studies that replacing estrogen is one of the best treatments that we have. Not all women are eligible for estrogen, like a lot of Dr. Critchman's patients that have estrogen-dependent cancers are not going to be eligible. However, hormone therapy is the gold standard for relief of all the irritating and annoying symptoms. And it improves your sleep quality, which again is going to make you feel more able to conquer your day and have sex, right? Which is why you're all here. So if you're not well rested, no woman wants to have sex. It's just a fact of life. I often think of a mandatory sleep lecture that I had to go to when I was in my residency training. And it was always given by the doctor that was he was kind of older. He was working 120 hours a week when he was in training, which was a lot. And he was in his mid-20s, and he completely lost his sex drive because he was so sleep deprived. So it's really important to really guard our sleep and make sure we're getting good quality sleep for overall well-being and sexual well-being. All right, so hormone therapy. This is still, I would say, controversial, and most primary care doctors are very guarded about prescribing hormones for women. There was a study that came out over 20 years ago that really kind of put the brakes on hormone therapy, and it kind of made all women a little bit terrified of hormone replacement therapy. But all the data before that and what's come after that is really positive for those women that are in that window, or which are the clinical window, which is 10 years from menopause. So usually under age 60, if they're coming in with really bad symptoms, those are the women that actually benefit the most and should be offered estrogen therapy, as long as, again, they don't have any other reasons like history of cancer that they wouldn't be eligible for. So those are the women that we really want to try to address. And there are a ton of FDA-approved convenient ways to take hormones, from pills, patches, rings, creams, sprays. I mean, you name it, we've got it. And then for women that have a uterus, we also need to protect the uterine lining, again, through very convenient ways. There's even a combination estrogen progesterone patch, and there's an intrauterine device that also can protect the uterus. So there's lots of convenient ways, dosings, to get just the right amount to relieve the symptoms so that they can return to feeling well, brain fog hopefully lifted, thinking clearly, sleeping well, happy, functional, basically how life was before that transition kind of interrupted them. So again, some women feel like literally their life, their body was possessed, by a foreign, and their family will say that too, like, who are you and what happened to my wife and my loving mom, and et cetera, et cetera. So it really gives them their mind and their body back to explore all these options. And just lastly, there are other supplements for women that, and it's too much of a discussion here, but for women that can't have hormones, there's things to protect their bone health, which also is a benefit of estrogen. But if they can't take estrogen, there's calcium and vitamin D, and again, getting weight-bearing exercise. Those are all really helpful, again, for mind and body. And then, people always, talk about, well, what about those other over-the-counter supplements that have some estrogen properties? So those are things like soy and black cohosh that you can get at a health food store. And those can work for some women. I just always caution about them because they're not FDA regulated. So what you see sometimes in a bottle isn't always what you get. And you could be getting a little tiny bit, or you could be getting a lot. And so I just always caution a little bit about some of the over-the-counter products. And lastly, just know what your symptoms are. Talk to your doctor. It is an important health complaint, and we do have wonderful options to treat it. You don't have to just live and suffer through these symptoms. So.
And I just wanted to remind everybody that even if you do have cancer, we have a lot of innovative alternative medications that can help. And again, a lot of people that have cancer are not getting the right information. So some cancers, you can certainly be on hormones. So it's important to see a specialist. It's important to get the right information at the right time. And again, cancer patients shouldn't suffer in silence. Hot flashes can be debilitating. I treat women that can't function on a day-to-day basis without either hormones or alternative medications. They can't get through their day. They can't think clearly. So it is impactful. And again, remember, it's not just a hot flash. It is very impactful to women. It's very impactful to their families, their relationships as well. And there's a lot of things that we do have, whether it's hormones or non-hormones, that can help ease the burden of hot flashes and the other issues like vaginal dryness as well. Safe, effective treatments, and I know we're going to move into that as well.
So when these girls go out and they're doing parties, their ordering room is kind of a sacred room. This is a safe environment for women to come in and ask them and tell them their deepest, darkest secrets. So I know a lot of times women will come in with the concerns about menopause, vaginal dryness, anxiety, pain during sex, and even women avoiding sex. I don't want to do it. Is there anything I can buy that'll just do it for me? I'm sure you hear that, right?
The blow-up doll, Patty.
Yeah. What are some of the treatments that they should consider?
Well, Patty, I could talk the whole hour on this topic of dry vagina. It's so near and dear to my heart.
And it is ours too.
But honestly, I could learn a lot from you women. And I don't know, where is Mama Mitchell? Where was the woman that was just detailing me about the CBD oil and the miracle oil? All right, this is a very, very important thing to talk about with women, because by 3 years past menopause, and the average age in America right now is 49.9 years, 50% of women will have dry vaginas. The new term for vulvovaginal atrophy is called GSM, and that stands for genitourinary syndrome of menopause. Honestly, Michael and I were in this group of guys and gals and leading sexperts who had talked about erectile dysfunction and impotence. And impotence is sort of like vulvovaginal atrophy. People don't like those terms. And so they changed impotence to ED and vulvovaginal atrophy to GSM. But I must say, even being on that writing group, it was actually probably not the correct term, because dry vaginas happen to people who aren't even in menopause. I mean, a common scenario are people who are breastfeeding, and now, you're supposed to breastfeed till they're 5. I mean, it gets really dry because the estrogen, I'm joking about it. I'm very into breastfeeding. But the other thing are the cancer survivors who are on the aromatase inhibitors and the selective estrogen receptor modulators that just dry everything up. Obviously prevents cancer. And honestly, you could actually not even have cancer and your doctor tells you to be on this, and they don't care about the dry vagina that you're now having. So it is you people who care, because you're talking to the women who are really having a lot of problems and they're really suffering from this. And so I know that there are a lot of products, but let's just break it down. Honestly, the gold standard treatment for dry vagina is estrogen, hands down. And there have been a lot of women, particularly those who are afraid of heart disease. I don't want to get a stroke, and they hear about this stuff from the study, the Women's Health Initiative, and we were, us at MedStar, Georgetown, in Washington, D.C., we were one of the largest minority recruiters for that trial. So I'm actually a co-investigator. I know a lot about the trial, and that was a specific hormone that was taken by mouth that was tried compared to a placebo. What people need to understand is that the estrogen that's FDA formulated for the vagina is not the same thing. And so the black box warnings that you're seeing about estrogen don't apply when you're using it topically. If I were to test your estrogen level at baseline and you use anything that's FDA approved in the vagina, and I check it, the estrogen level 3 months later, you're not going to see a bump. And there was a study that looked at women 7 years, 45,000 women, a corollary of the Women's Health Initiative, doesn't get a lot of press time, Patty, but it showed that there is no increased risk for breast cancer, heart disease, uterine cancer, ovarian cancer. So by and large, if you need it, use it and feel comfortable. So that is the gold standard. But there are people who have allergies to certain formulations. There's propylene glycols, and so there's tablets, and there's rings, and there's even a special oral tablet that's just for the vagina because they are allergic to, what's in the formulations. So in addition to local estrogens, there's actually a pre-testosterone. We call it a pro-hormone that's been FDA approved. Use it nightly. It's a little suppository. So for some people who can't use estrogen, this may have a little bit of benefit with libido. I think those studies are still ongoing, Michael, but that's another option. And then obviously, if you don't use it, you lose it, So it becomes a vicious cycle. If you're not using it because it hurts so much, then it gets drier and drier. And the reason why we call this genital urinary syndrome of menopause is because it doesn't just affect the genital region, it starts to affect your bladder, your urethra, you get urinary tract infections, you get the discharge. I mean, so the whole goal is to prevent that vagina from becoming the Sahara Desert.
Nobody wants that.
So, you know, if we look at the guidelines, and there's a Menopause Society and the American College of OBGYN, first-line treatment is generally non-hormonal, although estrogen is the gold standard. And so those are all of the lotions and potions for the dry vagina, some of which you may have, but many of them are either water-based or silicone-based, which is dimethicone. And some of them are oil-based, and you have to be careful with the petroleum products for like latex condoms because they can break that down, and that could be a situation. But the bottom line is I think it's important to know what's in the ingredients and know what works for you. Some are moisturizers, some are lubricants, some are both moisturizers and lubricants. I feel like going to the kitchen cabinet to grab the Crisco oil, and some people swear by extra virgin olive oil. I don't know if that's the right formula because we need something that's pH balanced. And honestly, understanding acid-base balance and what the pH of the vagina should be, which is 4.5, when your pH goes up, that's when bad things start to grow down there. But the bottom line is, you guys know a lot more about a lot of these products. I sort of understand it on the holistic level about the categories, but I think people can experiment. And one of the things I do want to warn you about, because I know that there's a lot of advertisements on this stuff, are some of the additives. So some things have menthol, some things have warming gels. If you have very dry vagina or any type of vulvar skin condition, there's something called lichen sclerosis. I've done a lot of research on this. Patty's funding research to be done on multiple randomized trials on this, which is fantastic because you guys are furthering the science and you want to, I think that's just how you move the needle and do the right thing by women. But be careful sometimes with the warming gels and the peppermint oils in people who have severe dryness and some of these vulvar conditions. I'm happy to answer questions about this. Because sometimes that can worsen the situation. Vestibulitis, where there's inflammation of the opening. The vestibule is between the hymen and where the lips start to change color. That's where 80% of the nerves are. Highly sensitive. The clitoris is in that region. But be careful what you put down there sometimes.
Hey, Sherelle.
Yeah. Michael is the expert on this. I defer to you.
I do a lot of research on lotions and potions and all strange notions too. And I think it's really important to kind of understand the difference between a moisturizer and a lubricant. So I usually say moisturizers really maintain the vagina. You got to use them on a regular basis, independent of sex.
Like your skin cream.
And lube is for lovemaking. So again, I think that's a good distinction. And building upon what you said about the quick fix in the pantry, I would say some things are better left on your salad because and I don't want to be I don't want to be a Monday morning quarterback, but I happen to see a lot of these patients who are. I'm from Southern California, so if anything weird is going to happen, it happens there first. And I've seen a lot of women who, in a pinch, they have no lube, they're using all kinds of things from their pantry, and they get really bad infections. Yeah. So for some women, it may be okay, but there is other things that are impactful. And one thing you were talking about, remember, there's over 300 medications that cause vaginal dryness, even in young women. And I know we're gonna talk about some of these things like birth control pills. Some young women have vaginal dryness and they don't know why. And they blame themselves. They say, well, I'm not getting aroused. There's something wrong with me.
Right.
And again,
their partner could blame them.
Yeah, and very often it's just you need a change of medication. Another big culprit that we see is all the antihistamines. And for COVID-19, people were not sleeping well, so they were taking Benadryl every single night. And then they were coming in with sexual pain syndromes, and we kind of have to I would say you have to sometimes be a sexual medicine detective to kind of find out what's the cause. And very often you see that the partners are blaming them, or women will blame themselves because they are having this condition, and it's really an external factor. So just keep that in mind when you're speaking with your
As you can see, we can talk forever on this. But you know what? What we want to do is answer this question very quickly, because we want the audience to have that time to ask their questions.
Sure.
So if you would start lining up behind the microphones, so we'll be ready to go right to your questions. But very quickly, Kathleen, what is vaginismus, and how can dilators and pelvic floor therapy coupled with counseling help this condition?
Well, vaginismus is the involuntary contraction or spasm of the pelvic floor muscles that surround the vagina. It may prevent or create a very uncomfortable situation with any vaginal penetration, whether it's through sexual intercourse, gynecological exams, or even inserting a tampon. One of the things that we have found to be very helpful in treating vaginismus, and it's something that is very useful because it's something that you can do at home, is the use of vaginal dilators. There was a recent study that was just published that found that the use of vaginal dilators for vaginismus reduced pain from an 8.3 out of 10 to a 1.3. So it was very significant. We did a podcast on vaginal dilators, so I encourage you to look up that podcast. It's going to give you a lot of information that really right now we don't have time to go through. But the main thing that I really want to stress about the vaginal dilators, you are not stretching the vagina when you're doing it for vaginismus. You're releasing the pelvic floor muscles. I have patients that come to me and they think of that term stretch, and they associate it with a painful experience. So they're braced and their muscles already over-contracted with the thought of that this is going to be more pain. It's not. We utilize it as a method of retraining the muscle to relax with touch or with penetration. And the beauty of the dilators is that you have full control over it. You're able to utilize it in the way that best works for you. So take a look at that podcast. We go into a little bit more detail.
All right. You guys are amazing. I know we could talk forever. So, Cheryl, we're going to start with your group. Can you say who you are and what your question?
So I'm the one you called Mama Milty. I'm encountering quite a few women who are dealing with thyroid issues and the significant changes that does to your body. Can you answer for me if that also plays a role in these changes and difficulties that they're experiencing as well with their sex drive? I mean, obviously confidence with the changes in the body, and that becomes an issue, but does it also play a role in some of like vaginal dryness and any of the other things that?
So it was thyroid issues. So hypothyroid is, not only does it lead to like metabolism issues and weight gain issues, there is a hormone called thyrotropin releasing hormone, which is very similar to like areas that stimulate dopamine, and those kinds of issues when your metabolism is all out of whack can really affect your libido. I would also say that with the weight gain and the metabolism in general, I think you could probably relate. I don't know any direct correlation with vaginal dryness, but for sure desire.
I agree. And
the treatment is thyroid hormone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Simple, keep it simple. Yeah, so thyroid is called the master of hormones, and when that's out of whack, again, you're not sleeping well, you're fatigued, et cetera. So that, again, sort of indirectly relates to having a low sexual desire and arousal.
And I looked at the women that came to my center for a sexual health complaint, about 15% of them left with a diagnosis of thyroid dysfunction.
Yeah.
So it's very common to have the associated issues. And I think the important thing to remember is very often there is not just one problem in isolation. So we're talking about desire, arousal, pain. It's not uncommon to have a mixture of sexual problems, and one leads to another, right? So if you're not interested, you're not initiating, you're not having sex, you were talking about use it or lose it, you're not having it, then you get a dry vagina, or what have you. You get breast cancer, you have vaginal dryness, you're impacted, you're not interested, you have pain, and pain is the biggest issue. So you got to overcome that as well. But if your thyroid is overactive or underactive, you can have abnormal bleeding and heavy bleeding as well. You can also have changes in sexual self-esteem. You gain weight, you're nauseous, you are having frequent bowel movements. So there's a lot of other issues, changes in hair. So thyroid screening for thyroid is probably essential. Most women don't take care of themselves, and they're not going to getting wellness exams, which is really important. And thyroid should be checked regularly for women, especially over 40.
I definitely agree with you on that one. Suzanne, can you have your person?
So what are some of the non-hormonal options for cancer thrivers to use for menopause?
The
Non-cancer,
No.
non-hormonal cancer.
non-hormonal use for cancer
cancer
survivors.
For hot flashes? So,
For all of the horrible things.
so there is a variety of different medications, and we kind of tailor that. So, some of the medications that are in the class of antidepressants, we give them in ultra low doses, and they can certainly help. There's other medications in the evening, which is really more of a nerve medicine. If sometimes after cancer you have neuropathy, so you can use that medication in the evening. I also refer people all the time for complementary and alternative medicine. We talked about acupuncture. I have an acupuncture and libido program, acupuncture and hot flashes. Things like rhythmic breathing, mindfulness, also super important. But there are a variety of different medications. Even one of the medications that treats urinary incontinence has been studied and is helpful. So sometimes you're treating two things at the same time. So there is a lot of medications that are available in the antidepressants, bladder drugs, even nerve medication as well.
And if you look at the guidelines put out by the North American Menopause Society for Cancer Survivors, there's a tiered program, but if you are on a medication for cancer prevention, you've gone through your initial treatment and radiation, et cetera, and you're having a lot of dryness, one of the things they can switch if you're on something is to something called tamoxifen, which is not just anti-estrogen to the breasts, but it's actually pro-estrogen in the vagina. So there's a lot of ways that you need to talk about that, but you just need to tell your doctor, because we're not going to ask. Trust me. Oncologists aren't going to ask, are you having any other issues with your pelvic floor, vagina, et cetera? They're just going to be focusing on, it's like you have one complaint, the cancer. But that is a guideline that they should be very aware of.
And there are also women's health physical therapists that specialize in cancer rehabilitation.
Lymphedema.
I am a cancer survivor or thriver. I prefer the term thriver. And definitely I have experienced many of the symptoms that we discussed today. I also have a blood clotting disorder, so estrogen is a kind of a no for me. So I actually relied a lot on my women's health oncologist. She helped me learn how to do meditation to reduce anxiety. She set up an excellent weight-bearing and weight resistance program so that I can reduce my risk of osteoporosis. And I use vaginal moisturizers daily. And it works very well. So just remember, there's also another avenue of the multidisciplinary support team. And You know, it may not necessarily be something that they automatically go to, but don't be afraid to ask about it.
Suzanne?
But first, I just want to thank you for speaking so poignantly on cancer treatment and cancer patients. Really. 4 months post-treatment and having... No, others have had it so much worse than me, but having all of those symptoms already, and it's so hard to find a practitioner who will have those conversations depending on where you are.
Yeah.
And even if you bring your symptoms to light, they just sort of nod, make a note, and move on. So the fact that you're out there doing the work is so much appreciated. So my question is super quick. You were talking about the studies that show no correlation between the vaginal estrogen creams and the blood circulation. Could we please have that link?
You want the reference?
Yes, please.
Oh, yes. It's Carolyn Crandall, and it was published like in 2017. And it was the Women's Health Initiative Observational Study. You know, I'll send her the link, and we'll put it on the PBF website
Much
for you guys to
appreciated. Thank
share.
you.
There you go.
Yeah, it's important.
And if I might add, usually if you're a survivor and you get the approval from your oncologist and your gynecologist or other healthcare provider recommends vaginal estrogen, generally the oncologist will defer and say it's okay if it is okay. So there are opportunities to work in collaboration with your oncologist about vaginal estrogens.
But you know, it should never be black and white. You can use this for a very short time just to get things going, and then you yourself can keep it going. And it's safe, and we work hand in hand with your team so that we can do that.
It does take a team.
Yeah.
And it's important to recognize that, you know, this is part of what we're talking about of self-care.
Break the cycle.
Sometimes you have to be your best advocate. And just because the person sitting across the table may be a doctor, a physician assistant, doesn't necessarily mean they have all the answers. And, you know, I consult with oncologists across the country about cancer survivorship. And very often they, again, you know, I hear this every day. Before I got on the plane to come here, I saw a cancer survivor, and she said, she spoke to her oncologist, and the oncologist said, you should just be thankful you're alive. And her answer was, I'm alive, but I'm dead down there. And this is really affecting my life, affecting my marriage, affecting the way I live. And it so ties into the slang, live alive, and I think it's really important. There are clinicians, there's networks, we have all those resources for you at the PBF, where to find the right people. We don't have all the answers, but we know where to get them. And I think that's an important thing. You may not have all the answers about cancer or libido or what have you, but you know where to get help. And there are people like us all over the country, wherever you're from, we will be able to help you help your clients as well.
I am really sorry. We only have time for 2 more questions. So here's what I'm going to tell you that we will be able to do is right where those 2 globes are in the back, there's a whole table. You can submit your questions, and I promise you they will get answered. You can see how passionate these doctors are about making sure that you've got the right information. So whoever's next, what's your question?
Hi, my name is Leah Witz. I have a lot of questions from my clients about female ejaculation, about whether or not there is urine there. I have a lot of confusion in my clients. So I was wondering if you could give me the information so I can give my clients and customers the right info about that.
All right.
Can I take a stab? Okay.
I'm sitting back for this.
We actually discussed making this a podcast in of itself because there is quite a bit of controversy, so I'll just share a little bit of it. So there are little tiny glands next to the urethra that lubricate the urethra and release a similar type substance as a male ejaculate releases. But remember, these glands are super tiny, and even on imaging, it's really hard to find these glands, whereas a male has really large glands that make a bunch of the ejaculate, right? Prostate glands, seminal glands, all these are glands that make just like, a teaspoon of fluid for the ejaculate. So this is my humble opinion that those little tiny glands that we can't find on imaging probably aren't the source of female ejaculation. Dr. Iglesia and I see a lot of women that have a lot of leakage at the time of orgasm that is related to urinary incontinence. Because again, with orgasm, the bladder can contract and release a lot of fluid, which is urine. So there's a large organ there that has a lot of fluid that leaks easily with orgasm and just sometimes with thrusting. So in my opinion, the only imaging and source of this large fluid that could be released and sprayed is likely urine. But again, there is a little bit of controversy on this topic, and I'll defer to the panel here on their thoughts.
Perfectly answered.
There we go.
It's a really common question, and some people don't like the answer but it's okay. And it, again, back to just knowing your body, and it's okay. And this book, Come As You Are, everything is hotness, okay? Your body's hotness, your body's function is hotness, even if it's not working well, it's hotness, okay? Just, it's okay, and if you leak a little bit, it's okay. Your partner's okay with it, I promise.
Yeah.
But we can fix it if you want it fixed. Right.
So now you have the answer. All right, next question.
Yeah, my name is Heidi, and my question is, do you think it'd be a beneficial idea to take the Brain Boost with the testosterone to help premenopausal women?
Testosterone for menopausal.
The new products.
For Brain Boost.
Oh, Brain Boost. Oh,
The two
yes,
together.
definitely. I have a published article on complementary and alternative medicine, alluding to my, home in Southern California. There are, the land of the tree huggers and everything. I think my approach to sexuality, to cancer survivorship, is really this approach from conservative to more aggressive. And I really believe that, high quality products, there is a lot of evidence to support their use. I mean, tamoxifen, which is now technically a drug, it was found in nature from a tree bark. So I really believe that they're very, very helpful. I think you just have to make sure that you get the supportive data. So there's some good websites, we'll make those available, good resources for the ingredients and know what's in it. And I definitely think that's really important. I personally take a lot of vitamins and supplements because I think they are helpful. But again, I think it's also very important to have a well-balanced diet, exercise, sleep, as we were talking, and to take care of yourself. One thing we didn't mention, which I think is really important, vitamin D. So, talking about self-care, everybody in the room, please make sure you got your pap smear, your mammo. If you didn't during COVID, you put it off. Don't put it off anymore. It's really important to take care of yourself. Vitamin D essential. It decreases cancer recurrence. If by some fluke you do get COVID, you know that vitamin D deficiency in COVID is a problem. It helps your vagina and it will help your bones. So if you don't want to go outside and get some 10 minutes of sun, make sure your vitamin D level is appropriate.
Okay, Dr. Ricard, thank you for sharing with us what self-care really means. What does it mean to you?
I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to try to make it brief, but know yourself, know what works for you, explore all the resources on the PBF resource website, including the Sexual Anatomy 101. I think that's going to really be helpful for your clients. Look in the mirror, look down there, encourage your clients to look down there. A lot of our patients have never looked between their legs, so know what's down there, okay, and know what feels good.
I'm just going to say it. It's called the vagina. It's not down there. You know, women, I'm sorry. You know, women say it hurts down there, and I'm like, where? Your knees, your ankles, your toes? No, it's the vagina. You can say it and know what the vagina is, you know? The vagina and the vulva and clitoris, you can say those words.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Thank you, Dr. Critchman. Really quick funny story. My daughter, when she was really little, I told her all the parts, and we're walking in the mall, and she screamed really loud, "Mom, you're hurting my vagina!" You know. So just be cautious. But yes, thank you for that. So again, I think you might have heard the wall of vaginas. It's actually wall of vulvas. There's a big artist that does that. So the term vagina and vulva often gets taken the wrong way and misused. So please know the anatomy and encourage your clients to know it as well. Make sure you communicate with your partner and encourage your clients to do the same. The sexiest thing a woman can do is tell their partner what feels good and what they need to do, so make sure you empower them. We also, again, give you permission to explore, use lotions, potions, toys, tools, okay, whatever it needs, whatever you need to get the right stimulation to the right place. And then, as Dr. Critchman already has alluded to, just take good care of yourself. Again, sleep is, for me, the most important thing. There's a great book called Why We Sleep. I highly encourage you to read it. It will make you value your sleep highly. It's the most important thing we can do. And then, you know, get more time in the bedroom, sleep and sex. Who couldn't get more of things in the bedroom? So do those things in the bedroom.
I agree. What is self-care for you?
Well, at this point, Patty, self-care is self-preservation because it's been a year. And I think we do have to say no to things that don't matter so much. We need to not put ourselves up with all the media images. Like, I'll never compare myself to Cher. I think you are the vision of growing old gracefully. So, you know, I think we got to take care of each other, take care of our mental health.
Yes.
Right now, and I just really happy to be here. I hope you all get home safely, and we all get through this together. So.
Do you have anything to add?
Yes. What I want to really encourage you is to seek out a pelvic health therapist in your community. We can utilize your products with our patients to the benefit of your client and our patients. If you go to the Patty Brisbane Foundation website, there's a directory of pelvic floor physical therapists. You know, that interaction and that relationship that you can have with the pelvic floor physical therapist with educating your client and helping the pelvic floor therapists understand what you have and what you can help with your client is invaluable. I always appreciate when my patient comes in and says they're working with a Pure Romance consultant because I know that you know what products you have and that I can utilize those products to the benefit of my patients. So please, you know, develop that relationship.
So, final notes here. What I want to say to all of you who have been gala champions, thank you so much for signing up for the gala this year. I can't wait to see how you celebrate women's sexual health, and we will share it on our site and with others. And for those of you who had the gala last year, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart because we are the only ones, and I'm not making this up, that are giving back to research when in regards to women's sexual health.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And significance.
And I have brought on the best of the best. Not me. They are making the decision on how this money is being spent. And you know what? I want to thank all of you because we couldn't do it without each and every one of you. It's so important, not just for your health, but you got to remember down the road, it's your daughters, your great-granddaughters, generations after. This research is going to help so many. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank each and every one of you. It's such an honor to have each and every one of you here. And I thank you so much for everything that you bring to the table to help others and to help these girls carry the message forward. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.